right, everybody. Um, Coming to you once again with another lesson here of knowledge with understanding. So all praise to the Most High for blessing me to be able to bring another lesson forth. And I pray that this lesson, enter into the ears of the people that it's meant for, and that the hearers of it might hear and understand and see and perceive and be edified by the Spirit of the Most High. All right. So get right to it. This lesson is going to be in reference to Jacob's trouble. And, for most people, some people may not, well, I guess, it mainly kind of pertains to Israelites or anybody that's of the Israelite persuasion, because a lot of people that are of different religions in Christianity may not be aware of the term Jacob's trouble. So this is mainly it'll be for whoever's listening and whoever understands. But nevertheless, in case you're not aware of what Jacob's trouble is said to be a day in the end time where us as Israelites, meaning black people that are descendants of those slaves that were brought over in 1619 and were made slaves and servants that had to serve out servitude here in America over hundreds of years, and we are their descendants. So, and it's believed, according to the Bible, that we are the children of Israel. So, with that being said, Jacob's trouble is said to be a day that's going to occur in the end time, before the end of the world, before Christ's return, and that we are going to have to face a lot of turmoil, a lot of uncivil rest, rather, so to speak. I'll put it that way. Well, if you consider the time that we've been here and the hundreds of years that we've been here, we faced a lot of that already thus far. Okay, so the purpose of this lesson is to show those that understand what I mean when I say Jacob's trouble, is to show you that Jacob's trouble is not just one day. Jacob's trouble is it covers a multitude of time, it stems from the fall of Jerusalem, when we actually had to flee Jerusalem, when, in the 70 AD, when we had to flee Jerusalem. That's actually when Jacob's trouble began, but that doesn't change when the curses were poured out upon us, because the curses had been poured out upon us from back in the days of King. So I want to try. I'm gonna go through some verses and some scriptures here and there, and I'm gonna try to make it plain, to where you can understand it, and hopefully you can make sense of it. You shouldn't have any problem with understanding it, because I'm going through the scriptures, and I'll illustrate, and I'll be giving some pointers here and there, and this will kind of give me an opportunity to touch over some verses and scriptures that I've already read over before, and I've given some understanding on them, and this will give me the opportunity to go over these verses again and just kind of try to build up, to where you could, who's ever listening, you could take these same verses and these same scriptures, and you can make sense of it yourself. All right, so what we're going to do is just we're going to actually go to that actual verse that makes mention of Jacob's trouble. All right, and that'll be in Jeremiah chapter 30, and we're going to start there. And once I get going, like I said, I'll probably be I'll be reading some in different books. I'll be reading different chapters, and it's going to be quite a bit of reading, so I'll try to pick up my speed a little bit, and because I want to do a lot of explaining on some of the things that I'm going to be reading, and try to tie it all together, so that it'll make sense to you and you'll be able to understand it. All right, so let's look at messing up already. Jeremiah chapter 30. I said chapter 30 verse 6 and 7. I said 7, but we're going to start at verse 4. All right, Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 4. And it reads in verse 4, it says, "And these are the words that the Lord spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah." You see, he's always making reference to Israel and Judah. Now, this is prophecy. Okay, in Jeremiah. This is before they went into the Babylonian captivity. Now remember, on one of the other lessons I told you before, when Jeremiah's talking, he's talking about a twofold prophecy. That means that the children of Israel went into captivity under Nebuchadnezzar, which was the Babylonians, and during the same time that he's talking about another captivity that the children of Israel are going to go into, and that's the captivity where Christ told them when they see Jerusalem compassed about to flee into the mountains. It's talking about the same it's talking about is illustrating another captivity at a different point in time, but Jeremiah is speaking about the same thing. And I think I kind of tied that together on another lesson, but I'll touch on it again in this lesson just as well. And hopefully you'll be able to catch on to it. All right, so we're going to start in verse 4 again. I just wanted to make the point that the Lord is always dealing with Israel and Judah. And when I say Israel, that means 10 of the other tribes that split from Judah, which was 2 tribes. And then you had the Levites that joined with them, and they became known as the Southern Kingdom. And then the other 10 tribes became known as the Northern Kingdom. All right. So, and hence the Northern Kingdom, the Gentiles. All right. So I'll keep reading. I'll read verse 4 again. And these are the words that the Lord spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah. For thus saith the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. So now he's making mention here, Jeremiah speaking, and he's making mention of hearing the voice of fear and not peace, and the voice of trembling. So this is indicating to the children of Israel that there's trouble coming, and your voices are the voices that are going to be trembling with fear when this time comes. Okay, so now I'm going to read verse 6. It says, ask ye now, and see whether a man doeth travail with child. When it says, I'll stop right there for a minute, but when it says, ask ye now, and see doeth a man travail with child, you know how women travail when they're having children? They're in pain, and they're holding their belly because of the pain that they're in. That's what he means by travailing with child. It's just how do you say it when you substitute something synonymous to giving birth, or it's just giving an illustration of a woman being in pain. That's what position the men are going to be in. That's why it says, ask ye now and see whether a man doeth travail with child. So he's wanting to find out, are these men giving birth to babies? And then why are they holding their bellies, and in pain? And I'll keep reading. It says, wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. That paleness is fear. Okay, so now he's letting you know that they're about to go through some troublesome time. And at this point in time that they're going to have to go through and face, they're going to be full of fear. And they're going to be in a lot of pain and agony, in other words. So verse 7, it says, alas, for that day is great. Now, he's letting you know that this day that's coming is going to be great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Okay, I'll stop right there. So now when it says that for that day is great, even though it says that day is great, it's not making reference to one day. It's making reference to a dispensation of time. And you're going to understand that when I go through the entire lesson. You'll be able to put it together. But even right here in verse 7, when it says that day is great, and then at the bottom of that verse where it says, but he shall be saved out of it, the he is Jacob or Israel. If it's giving you, and this is where a lot of guys make the mistake of saying that Jacob's trouble is going to be one day in the end time. Now, all throughout the duration of time, that when the children of Israel fled from Jerusalem, and they went into captivity over the course of time after fleeing Jerusalem, they were in Jacob's trouble at that particular point in time. And I'll get to that when I get into the scriptures a little bit more. But I'm just trying to make a point here to let you know that this is not just one day. And because if it was just one day, you got to think that when the scripture says and he shall be saved out of it. That one day, you got to find out where it starts, which I'm going to show you. When I show you where it makes a initiation of Jacob's trouble, we're going to go to the book of Ezekiel, but not just yet. And I want to show you where that started, and then you'll make sense of what I'm saying once I put these scriptures together, which I've gone over these scriptures in another lesson. All right, but I'm going to touch on them again, and we're going to just try to make the drill it home and make the point of Jacob's trouble. Okay, so I want to read verse 7 again. It says, "Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it." Okay, so when it says that day is great, so that none is like it, now let's go over into the book of Daniel real quick and show you what Jeremiah is talking about right there in verse 7. All right, so let's go over to the book of Daniel because he said, remember, he says that day is great, so that none is like it. So let's go over into in a lot of these scriptures, most of y'all know, those of you that study or whatever, so to speak. But for those that don't, just pay attention. And if you can learn something, you can learn something. So let's go to the book of Daniel real quick. We're going to go to Daniel chapter 9, and we're going to start in verse 11. All right. And Daniel chapter 9. Let's see here. That's chapter 1. Let me get the right chapter here before I start making mistakes again. All right. Let me make sure I got the right verse up. All right. Right chapter and verse. Okay. Daniel chapter 9. We're going to start in verse 11. Now, this is in reference to that day being, and it says that there shall be no day like that day. This is what Daniel said in Daniel chapter 9. We're going to start at 11, and we read down to verse 13. It says in verse 11, it says, "Yea, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice." So he's letting you know that Israel transgressed the laws of God by not obeying his voice. And I'll keep reading. "Therefore, the curse is poured upon us, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, because we have sinned against him." Now, that oath that's written in the law of Moses is the curses that he's talking about in Deuteronomy chapter 28. That's what Moses told the children when he set them down after they had came out of the Mount Sinai, and he told them the things that will befall them if they didn't keep the commandments of the Lord or hearken to his voice. And being that they didn't, this is where it began to take place. And this is what Daniel is talking about, that the curse is being poured out upon them. The curses in Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 16 on down. All right. So I'll read verse 11 again. It says, "Yea, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice. Therefore, the curse is poured out upon us, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, because we have sinned against him." Verse 12, "And he hath confirmed his word, which he spake against us, and again against our judges, and judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil. For under the whole heaven have not been done as have been done upon Jerusalem." Okay, so now he's saying right here, this evil that's being done upon the children of Israel or Jerusalem, this type of evil is not gonna be done upon anyone else upon the earth. That's going to be done upon Jerusalem. Now, this right here, what Daniel is talking about, this hasn't taken place just yet. Okay, this is prophecy just as well, not the entire thing of it, or at least this great evil. Because I'll tell you this, remember when they were under the Babylonian captivity, and the Lord told the children of Israel, if they were to put their necks under the yoke of the Babylonians, they can build houses, marry their wives, marry their sons and daughters off to wives and children, and wives and husbands, build houses, plant gardens, and they could live a prosperous life. So the time frame, now even though they suffered, because the ones that didn't do it, then they perished by the famine, the pestilence, the sword, and things of that nature. But which was evil just as well. But this evil that Daniel is talking about right here is going into the evil that befell our ancestors when they came over here in 1619. This is the evil that Daniel is talking about just as well. Now, I'll finish reading verse 13. It says, "And it is written in the law of Moses, all the evil is come upon us, yet made we not our prayer before the Lord our God, that we might turn from our iniquity and understand thy truth." So even then, we wouldn't turn back to the Most High. And this is a problem with us as a nation of people. We like to seek out other things or other options rather than just turning back to the Lord, learning of, his word, what it says for us to do, and then just humbly submit to it and do it. And that's all we have to do. We don't, like a lot of our people today, we harp on voting. We harp on a lot of different avenues to, to go down to just try to, I don't even know the word. I would say justify, but to just to restore. We try to find different avenues to go down to restore ourselves, when none of that's going to work if we don't have the Lord with us. And not only that, if we're not doing according to what God said, he's not going to be with us. And that's what it is about a lot of us. We just don't understand, okay? So now let's go over and jump into this part, or this thing right here that I'm telling you about, which is Jacob's trouble. Now, this is the initiation of Jacob's trouble, when it actually began. And it's going to be over in the book of Ezekiel. Give me a minute, and I'll get over there in just a minute, but I just want to continue elaborating a little bit. This thing that Daniel is talking about right here, where he said this evil that's going to befall us, this is included just as well, because the children of Israel died at the hands of the Romans that encompassed them about, which Christ is talking about just as well. So I'm going to touch on that just as well, just to kind of tie these scriptures together. And you got to be able to see it, that this all together is Jacob's trouble. This is where Jacob's trouble began. And throughout our time after we fled Jerusalem, and after we were taken by the other nations and taken into captivity, and the curses of Deuteronomy 28 began to pour out upon us, that was Jacob's trouble. That was the trouble that Jeremiah is speaking about in Jeremiah 30:7. That's the trouble, which I'm going to get into, and I'm going to show you. All right, so let's go over to the book of Ezekiel chapter 7. Now, this is the initiation of Jacob's trouble, not the initiation of the curses, because we had already been under the curses. And they, like I said, they started out in the book of Kings on a small scale. But here, what Daniel is speaking about is when it actually began. So we're going to go to Ezekiel chapter 7. It's got quite a bit of reading to do. I think I'm going to probably read from verse 1 down to about verse, let's see here, 20, 21 maybe. All right, so, and as I read, I'm going to touch on a few things and try to elaborate on some of the things and try to make sense of some of what some of the verses are saying to you. All right, so let's start it out here, right here in Ezekiel chapter 7. That's verse 1. It says, now remember, this right here is when the children is. I'm gonna go over into the book of Matthew, and I'm gonna line this up so that you'll see that this lines up with Matthew. This is prophecy in reference to what Christ was telling the children of Israel was going to happen to them when they had to flee Jerusalem. And this is it. This is the prophecy that's taking place, and Christ is going to basically confirm it when he tell them the same thing. Well, when he tell them what happens and when they're going to have to flee Jerusalem, it lines right up with this right here. All right. So Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 1. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, this is Ezekiel speaking. Verse 2. Also thou son of man, thus saith the Lord God unto the land of Israel, an end. The end is come come upon the four corners of the land. Now this is Israel. This right here, what he's speaking about, which I'm gonna get to it when I jump over there. But he's speaking about a time in Israel where there's something that's coming upon the whole entire land. That's why he said the four corners. Something's gonna happen, and he's saying that this is an end. He said this is the end. So that means that whatever's coming, there's nothing gonna be after this in the land of Israel. Verse 3 says, now is the end come upon thee. I will send mine anger upon thee, and will judge thee according to thy ways, and will recompense upon thee all thine abominations. So now the Lord is telling the children of Israel, I'm going to punish y'all for everything that y'all have done. Okay? And he's letting them know he's going to judge them. Verse 4, it says, and mine eyes shall not spare thee. So the Lord is not going to have pity on them. For those that, we just love to say that God is an all-loving God. No, he was upset with the children of Israel for breaking his commandments, just like he's upset with us today. That's why we're here in America under the punishment of that belt that the Lord has put on us since we fled our homeland. But a lot of us don't want to let that sink in and understand what the scriptures are saying, or even not just the scriptures, but even the history, or even our condition that we're in right now. We don't want to acknowledge it. We're satisfied with what we have today, and we're complacent, and we're content. We don't think that we have a land. We don't even know that we're a nation. We're a nation of people, and we don't seem to want to gather that nation together and become one for some reason. All right, so let me go back to verse 4 again. It says, and mine eyes shall not spare thee. This is when he says, my eyes shall not spare thee, all those lynchings and all those things, terrible things that took place in the days of slavery. That's what the Lord is saying. He didn't care. Okay? And then he says, neither will I have pity, but I will recompense thy ways upon thee, and thine abominations shall be in the midst of thee, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. Okay? In verse 5 it says, thus saith the Lord God, and evil, and only evil, behold, is come. What did Daniel say when he was making mention of that evil? That was not, in fact, let me go back to it real quick, and I'll come back to this here. Daniel, we jump back over there real quick. Daniel, chapter 9, excuse me. Chapter 9, verse 11. Okay. Right here it says Daniel chapter 9. Let me try to find it so I can get right to it. Okay, verse 12. It says, and he hath confirmed his words. This is Daniel chapter 9, verse 12, where it says, and he hath confirmed his words, which he spake against us, and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil. For under the whole heaven hath not been done as hath been done upon Jerusalem. So anybody can say that everybody went into slavery here and there and here, or whatever. But the Lord said this thing that was going to befall the children of Israel. Let me go back to it again, just so you can't say that that's not what it said, especially if you have a Bible. Daniel chapter 9, verse 12. And he hath confirmed his words, which he spake against us. Talking about us is the children of Israel, and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil. This evil is having to flee our homeland, which was Jerusalem, and go into slavery or captivity. From the days that we fled Jerusalem all the way up until they took us from the coast of Africa, where we migrated into after we fled Jerusalem, and they brought our ancestors over here to the Americas in 1619. He said, this is the evil that he's speaking about, by bringing upon us a great evil, for under the whole heaven have not been done as hath been done upon Jerusalem. This is why our slavery, or the slavery that our ancestors and our forefathers had to go through and suffer. That's why it's wide world, how I'm trying to say this, it's worldwide spread, or spread worldwide, and there's no other atrocity that compares to it. It's above anything that's ever happened. This is what Daniel is saying. Now, when I go through the curses in Jeremiah, in Deuteronomy, and you'll see that the curses in Deuteronomy actually identify us here in America. And you got to understand that those things that happened to our ancestors here in America are what he's talking about in verse 12. That evil, for that evil that was under the whole heaven had not been done as was done to Israel. This is what the Lord is talking about. Okay, so now let me go back over to Ezekiel before I get myself entangled into something else that I don't need to veer off into. So Ezekiel, back to Ezekiel 7, and I think I left off at verse 5. All right, so Ezekiel chapter 7. This is that because I was showing you the evil that Daniel was talking about, and that verse 5 is talking about right here in Ezekiel chapter 7. So it says, verse 5 again, it says, "Thus saith the Lord God, and evil, and only evil, behold, is come. An end is come. The end is come. It watcheth for thee. Behold, it is come. The morning is come unto thee, O thou that dwellest in the land. The time is come. The day of trouble is near, and not the sounding again of the mountains." Now, when it says the morning is come unto thee, once the sun rises and the morning break forth, in the sky, what it's saying right here is that this is a sure thing, because you can't turn the sun backwards and cause it to go down. Once it rises and it begins to rise, it's going to continue to rise. That's why he says right here, the morning is come unto thee. This is it. So when you look at Jeremiah in verse Jeremiah 30 and 7, where it says, "Alas, that day cometh," it is, and it talks about the Jacob's trouble. In fact, let me go back to it. Now remember, right here in Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 7, where it's saying the morning is come unto thee. Watch Jeremiah chapter 7, and just bear with me because I'm going back and forth here on my computer. But Jeremiah chapter 7, I'm sorry, 30, chapter 30, verse 7. And it says, "Alas, for that day is great." Now, this is like I said, this is the beginning of the day. And when it says that day is great, you got to remember, this is not speaking about only one day. It's giving you a duration it's speaking about a duration of time. It's a multitude of time. And like I said before, stemming from the fall of Israel. And this is when we begin to flee Israel in the book of Ezekiel. That's the prophecy of it, but it happened after the days of Christ. All right. So let me go back over to Ezekiel. And let me try to go ahead and get on through through it. Ezekiel chapter 7. And I don't mind going back and forth. I just hope that you bear with me. But nevertheless, Ezekiel, what was I in verse 7? Yeah, verse 7. It says in verse 7, Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 7. Again, "The morning is come unto thee, O thou that dwellest in the land." He's talking about Israel dwelling in the land. "The time is come, the day of trouble." You see that trouble? That's Jacob's trouble he's talking about. "The day of trouble is near, and not the sounding again of the mountains." Now, when the scripture's talking about the sounding of the mountains right here, which I don't have to go into it. Remember when they came out of Egypt? Because he's letting them know right here, y'all are getting ready to go into Egypt again. According to Deuteronomy 28:68. You're getting ready to go into Egypt again here now, that after you fled Jerusalem and you get caught up by your adversaries, you're going into Egypt. So after they came out of Egypt the first time, the Lord brought them to Mount Sinai. And the Lord had Moses sit them down out at Mount Sinai, and he caused the mountains to quake, and lightning and thunder and things of that nature. And then he gave them his laws, statutes, and commandments. And he guided them from that point with the Ark of the Covenant, and the Lord was with them. But he's letting them know right here, when you go into this captivity that you're going into, because you're gonna flee from this other nation, but you're not gonna hear the sounding of the mountains again. I'm not coming to your rescue, or to give you any kind of laws, statutes, or guidance from that point on. You're gonna be on your own. All right. So now I'm going to verse 8. It says, "Now will I shortly pour out my fury upon thee, and accomplish mine anger upon thee, and I will judge thee according to thy ways, and will recompense thee for all thine abomination. And mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity. I will recompense thee according to thy ways and thine abominations that are in the midst of thee. And ye shall know that I am the Lord that smiteth." The Most High is going to let us know that he's the one that's doing it to us. Behold, the day come. Behold, the day. Behold, it is come. The morning is gone forth. You see, again, he's letting you know that there's nothing that could stop this from coming. He's letting you know the morning is gone forth. Like the illustration that I just gave you a minute ago. Once the sun has begun to rise, you can't turn it backwards or turn it down. You can't make it go back. It's on its way up, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it's going to happen. Then he says in verse 10, "The rod hath blossomed, pride has budded." Now, when you consider a rod blossoming and the bud coming out of a rod, you can't make that blossom, that bud that blossomed, you can't make that go back either. Once it's budded, it's budded. And once it's blossomed, it's blossomed. So you can't turn this away. You can't turn it about. Or you can't turn it around, basically, in so many words. Verse 11, it says, "Violence is risen up into a rod of wickedness. None of them shall remain." So the Lord's letting you know he's going to do away with all the children of Israel. "Nor of their multitude, nor of any of theirs. Neither shall there be wailing for them." The Lord ain't going to give them time to even wail for one another or cry for one another. But like mourning, not at this particular point in time, because they're going to be in the midst of trying to flee. And you know how when in time past, or at whatever particular time when any of the children of Israel would perish, they would have memorials and bury each other and things of that nature. Bury whoever needs to be buried and have the memorial service and mourn them. They won't have time to do that at this point. All right, verse 12. It says, "The time is come, the day draweth near. Let not the buyer," read now, y'all, this might even sound familiar to you. When I get over into the book of Matthew, I'm going to jump back over here and I'm going to show you what this is talking about. But verse 12, it says, "The time is come, the day draweth near. Let not the buyer rejoice, nor the seller mourn. For wrath is upon all the multitude thereof," talking about all the children of Israel. "For the seller shall not return to that which is sold, although they were yet alive. For the vision is touching the whole multitude thereof, all Israel." All right. "Which shall not return." None of Israel is going to return back to Jerusalem. "Neither shall any strengthen himself in the iniquity of his life. They have blown the trumpet, even to make all ready, but none goeth to the battle. For my wrath is upon all the multitude thereof." So the Lord is saying, y'all could blow all the trumpets y'all want to set the men up to fight and to get ready to have war against the Romans, but it's not going to do you any good. He said, "Because my wrath is upon all the multitude thereof." So now the Lord's wrath is upon all the children of Israel. In verse 15 it says, "The sword is without, and the pestilence and the famine within. He that is in the field shall die with the sword." I'm sorry, I don't know if I can say that word or not, but "He that is in the field shall be unalived or slain with the sword, and he that is in the city, famine and pestilence shall devour him." Now, I taught this before, but I want to show you something in reference to Deuteronomy. Well, let's go to it. Deuteronomy chapter 28. In fact, I want to hold this place right here. Let me hold this. Hold on one second. I don't want to lose my spot. let me grab my Bible let me grab my Bible and go to Deuteronomy 28:16 in my Bible. And I want to show you this curse. And this is this curse being performed right here. Just give me 1 second. Or taking place. Okay, Deuteronomy 28 and verse 16. Deuteronomy 28 and 16. Cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field. Now, right there, this is that curse, being cursed in the city and being cursed in the field. Now, remember, if you remember on the first lesson one of the first lessons that I taught, I told you that this was a twofold prophecy. How the scriptures talk about wisdom is double. This is a twofold prophecy that Jeremiah is speaking about. So this curse right here in this particular point in time, where it says this, I'm going to go back to it again, verse 15. The sword is without. He's letting them know that if you go outside of the city, there's men out there with swords and they're waiting to do you in. All right. And then if you don't go out there and you maintain in the city, the pestilence and the famine inside the city, you're going to perish because of that just as well. All right. So this is the curse that Deuteronomy 28:16 is talking about. But that's at this particular point in time. And yet we also know that after our ancestors came over here to America, how the scriptures talk about the curses will pursue us and overtake us. When we got here, we were in a different atmosphere, and it wasn't wartime at that particular point in time. So the way that this curse fits in those days and time is we were cursed in the fields of picking cotton, sugarcane, and watermelons, and whatever else there was in those fields that we had to pick, getting our hands pricked to death. No, I ain't gonna say to death, but down to the bone from picking that cotton. And not just us, the men and women, but the children also. That was a curse. We didn't get paid for it, and we had to work from sun up to sundown. And not only that, if we didn't pick enough throughout the day, they were whipped and beaten, bloody. You know, you think about having a man or a woman work for you, which you should have hard enough to pay them for the job that they're doing. And in this instance, when our ancestors came over, remember the Lord said he wasn't going to have pity on them. And you think, do you think that what the Lord said, do you think that lines up? Because they didn't show us pity, and they didn't have any mercy on us either. And this is the thing that lets you know that these scriptures are making reference to us black people here in America as being the children of Israel. Okay, so I just want to finish up, but in reference to the curse here in verse 15, when it says the sword was without, and the pestilence and the famine within. He that is in the field shall be unalive with the sword, and he that is in the city, famine and pestilence shall devour him. Okay, so now again, that's what happened in those days and times. And once we came over here to this side of the globe, it was a different type of, it was the curse was played out differently. But nevertheless, we were still cursed in the cities here in America. Even now, today, we are. Most of our people as a whole, we live in the ghettos. Most of us don't have a 2-household income. Most of our people are getting assistance from the government, even after all of these years of being here, and after all the work that our ancestors have done in this land. And you know, we're talked about. People talk about our men, our women, after destroying us as a nation of people, doing the evil things that they've done to our men, the lynchings, the being put on open fires alive and castrated. I mean, a lot of terrible things. And for some reason, there are people that don't think that we need to be compensate. Not it the money because the Most High is going to do the compensating for us. But just even the thought that some people don't feel that there's a need for compensation to be distributed amongst us as a nation of people. But that which, like I said, I can care less about it because there's too many scriptures in the Bible that lets us know that the Lord is going to do all. He's going to give us all we need when the time comes when He returns, and we won't have any need for anything else after that. But there's a big price that a lot of people have to pay for the evils that they did to us. Okay, now I'm kind of harping on that a little too long, so let me move on. Verse 16, it says here, but they that escape of them shall escape and shall be on the mountains like doves of the valley, all of them mourning, every one for his neighbor, for his iniquity. So that's just letting you know that those that escape and get outside that city and escape that sword and things of that nature, they're going to be, on the mourning somewhere in the valleys, hiding and things of that nature. That's what Jeremiah was talking about when he said, why do I see, let me go back to it, Jeremiah 30. So just bear with me. Okay, Jeremiah chapter 30. And there's nothing really anybody can say, man, because this is truth. It's truth that I'm speaking about. And it's not even to degrade or talk about any other nation, rather, so to speak, in a derogatory way. But this is actual truth. And I'm not the only one that speak about this. They do too. It's in history and all throughout the world. So, you can't get upset with me about it. Okay, so where did I say I was going to? Jeremiah chapter 30. Let's see, I think I said verse 6. Yeah. Now, this is what he was just speaking about those that escaped, that were going to be on the mountains, mourning, and things of that nature. Well, verse 6 right here in Jeremiah says, ask ye now, and see whether a man doeth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. That's fear. All right, so let's go back to Ezekiel. Okay, let's go back to Ezekiel chapter 7. I think that might have been verse 16, and we're going to try to move on. All right, yeah, verse 16. I'll read it again. It says, but they that escape of them shall escape, and shall be on the mountains like doves of the valley, all of them mourning, every one for his iniquity. All hands shall be feeble. You see the weakness? And all knees shall be weak as water. This is what Jeremiah 30 and 6 is talking about. Verse 18, they shall also gird themselves with sackcloth, and honor horror shall cover them, and shame shall be upon all faces, and baldness upon all heads. Now, with the baldness upon all heads, because you'll understand that when I read the next verse. When the children of Israel had to try to atone for sins and things of that nature, if you remember Paul, when he came in and they thought that he was teaching something against the law of Moses, and they told him to make a vow and shave his head and things of that nature, that's where the baldness comes in at. All right, verse 18, they shall also gird themselves with sackcloth, and horror shall cover them, and shame shall be upon all faces, and baldness upon all their heads. They shall cast their silver in the streets, and their gold shall be removed. Their silver and their gold shall not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of the Lord. They shall not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels, because it is the stumbling block of their iniquity. All right, yeah, we always want to have a feast and a party or something like that. That's always been a part of our stumbling block, even today. We never want to get serious about life. We never want to get serious about serving the Lord. But as long as we can have a party and have a good time and things of that nature, and the Lord right there, he just said that was the stumbling block of our iniquity. All right. In fact, well, I won't even go to, maybe I'll go to it later on. But nevertheless, verse 20, it says, as for the beauty of his ornament, which is Jerusalem, he set it in majesty, but they made the images of their abominations and of their detestable things therein. Therefore have I set it far from them. What did he set far from us? Jerusalem. He put us out. That's what he's talking about. And now look at verse 21. And whoever you are that's listening, I won't go into any depth or anything like that because I don't want to stir. Well, it doesn't matter anyways, but I still like to try to be somewhat sensible about it. But when you look at verse 21, if you have any understanding, you'll have, 21 and on down, you'll understand what the scriptures are talking about. But right here in verse 21, it says, now remember, he said right there in verse 20, at the last part of it, he said it far from them. And then verse 21, this is how you know he's talking about Jerusalem. Verse 21 says, and I will give it into the hands of the strangers for a prey. So that means he's giving the land of Israel to somebody else, and to the wicked of the earth for a spoil, and they shall pollute it. All right, and I'll stop right there, and I'll leave it up to you to figure it out. If you got any understanding, you will. Okay, so now let's go over to Matthew, where I was telling you that I would show you that how it lines up with this right here, so that you'll know that what Ezekiel is speaking about here in chapter 7 is prophetic. It's prophecy as to what would happen after the days of Christ, when the children of Israel had to flee the land of Jerusalem. All right, so let's go to Matthew chapter 24 real quick. Let me make sure I get, I don't know why that said, we're going to go to Matthew chapter 24, and we're going to start at verse 2 real quick. All right, and in fact, I'll probably read 1. It says, and Jesus went, verse 1, this is Matthew chapter 24, verse 1. And it says, and Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the building of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, see ye not all these things? He's talking about the temple and the building of it and all there is about it. Verily, truly, I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. See, now he's talking about Jerusalem being destroyed. This is, remember, Ezekiel. You just have to go back to it, flip back and forth in your Bible, and make the comparison. All right, this is, he's gonna show you in a little bit what I mean by that. So now let's jump over to same chapter. Let's go to verse 15, and all that other stuff in between. You can read that and make sense of it as you will. But let's go to verse 15. We're gonna read verse 15 down to 21. Now, this is when Jerusalem is destroyed. But now this didn't happen in the days of Christ. This is the desolation that Daniel was speaking about. But this didn't happen till sometime. It was, like I said, 70 AD. This was years later. Okay, so none of Daniel wasn't around at that time. Christ, he was already gone and things of that nature. But the generation that he was speaking to, they were there. That's why when Christ said, in fact, if I could find it real quick, when he said, for this generation shall, let me see if I can find it real quick. I know it's right here in this chapter, but I really don't have to. Let me see. It's somewhere down the line there, but where he talked about this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. The things that he was talking about are all the things that he had that he made mention to them of, about how they would have to flee Jerusalem and how the temple will fall and things of that nature. He was talking to that specific generation, and but which that's neither here nor there. So just let's go to verse 15, and then we'll go on down from there. Verse 15 says, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel. See, Daniel the prophet, Daniel spoke of this. And then it says, stand in the holy place. Now, when the scriptures say stand in the holy place, that don't mean go and stand in the temple. because right now it's being destroyed, and you have the Roman army coming in to unalive whoever they catch. So this don't mean stand in the holy place in the holy temple. That means keep the commandments of the Lord. Even as you flee and you run for your life, you remember, you keep the commandments of the Most High. That's why he says, whoso readeth, let him understand. That means stay in the spirit of the Lord. All right. Verse 16. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop come not down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. So that means those that have babies in their bellies, and those that have babies that are on the breast, that they give milk to. He's letting you know that it's going to be terrible for you. In verse 20, it says, but pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. Because if it was in the winter, that would be harsh. And if it's on the Sabbath day, a lot of the children of Israel didn't want to do things on the Sabbath day. They would even allow that to cause them to lose their lives, instead of running or fleeing, So that's why he said it. Verse 21, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world, to this time, no, nor ever shall be. What did Daniel say? There was going to be an evil that was going to be upon the children of Israel or Jerusalem that was never done upon anybody else. This is the same evil that Daniel is talking about right here. And this is Christ speaking. And he's letting you know, he's confirming what Daniel said, for then shall be great tribulation. This is not just one day. This is actually the beginning of Jacob's trouble. This is what Daniel is talking about when he says, for that, and let me go back to it, and then I'll come back. Let me go. In fact, let me let me grab my Bible, and I'll keep this on my computer. All right, hold on. Come on, friend. All right, Daniel. All right, let's see, Daniel chapter 9. Okay, now I'll read this again in Matthew 24. And where was it? In verse 21. This is Matthew chapter 24, verse 21. It says here, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world, to this time, no, nor even shall be. So he's letting you know that there hadn't been any evil that was done from the time of the beginning of the world up until this very moment and this very time that the Messiah was on the scene while he's talking. Now, remember, I told you that what Daniel was talking about when he was talking about that great evil, that wasn't including that wasn't including the captivity that they went in under the Babylonians. You see, so even though they had to suffer a lot of harsh stuff under the Babylonians, not only the Babylonians, but the Medes and the Persians and the Greeks just as well, because they made it through all of those captivities in order to get to this point to where Christ came on the scene. So everything that they went through, that's why I'm telling you, and that's how I know that the great evil that Daniel is talking about and that the scriptures are talking about right here in verse 21, it's talking about the captivity that our foreparents went into, our ancestors that they were in over here in America. That's what Daniel was talking about, and that's what the scripture are talking about right here. After we fled Jerusalem, that's the great tribulation and the evil. It says, I'll read it again. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world, to this time, no, nor ever shall be. The things that happened to us in slavery, or our ancestors, that has happened to nobody else. So anybody can make all the comparisons that they want to make. They can bring up all the other people that they can think of and try to make the comparison to just to be able to say, well, these people went into slavery. Everybody was taken into slavery. I don't care who was taken into slavery. Christ himself said that it was going to be a tribulation such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. Okay, so now where the problem is with Jacob's trouble is that a lot of brothers take that. Well, you know, I'm not one to attack anybody, so, but it's been taught that. Well, I'm assuming that they take this to mean that this day and time of Jacob's trouble is gonna. This is it right here, but no, that this is talking about two different separate times, and I'll show you. I'll show you the other one when it talks about tribulation. But let me keep moving. I think I made my point here in reference to the tribulation and the evil that Daniel was speaking about. But now let me go back up a little bit, and I want you to remember that I read over in Ezekiel where it was talking about the seller not going back. In fact, let me go back to it. So, but I want to make this point. Let me read this real quick, and that way you can remember when it says here in verse 16, Matthew chapter 24, verse 16, them, it says, then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that, you know, give suck to child and stuff like that. So, but when you go back over into Ezekiel, go back over there real quick, chapter 7. Man, I don't know why it's always Ezekiel chapter 7. And let's see. Let's go back up. And let me find it. Let me put my eyes on it. Yeah, verse 13. Ezekiel chapter 7, and we start at verse 12. Verse 12. It says, the time has come, the day. Now, this is the day. This is what that's talking about. What we just read in Matthew. But this is Ezekiel prophesying it. He says, the time has come, the day draweth near. Let not the buyer rejoice, nor the seller mourn, for wrath is upon all the multitude thereof. Verse 13, for the seller shall not return to that which is sold, although they were yet alive, for the vision is touching the whole multitude. Therefore, which shall not return, neither shall any strengthen himself in the iniquity of his life. Hold on. There's another part that I wanted to read, and I'm trying to find it now with my hand, where it talked about the seller not going back. Oh man. Just bear with me for a minute. Let me see if I can find it real quick, so that way you'll understand what's going on. Over in the book of Matthew, this is what it's talking about. If I could just, okay, is that it? Okay, well, I guess it's between 12 and 13, where it talks about for the seller shall not return, yes, it, to that which is sold, although they were yet alive, for the vision is touching the whole multitude. So nobody's going to be going back to get anything, you know, out of the city. So now let me go back over to, okay, well, I think I made my point in Matthew. So now, in reference to the book of Ezekiel right here, where we are, now after Christ, then let's do this real quick. Let me go back over it real quick just to make sure I don't forget, I don't miss something. I'm not missing something in Matthew chapter 24. I got to come back to it anyways, but it's something I know that I needed to touch on. I wanted to touch on. Just let me double check. Okay, so right here, now in the book of Matthew, when Christ told them to flee into the mountains, let's see. After they fled, okay, yeah, verse verse 16, chapter 24 and verse 16, he said, then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. From that point right there, the children of Israel had to flee, and they had to go into the mountains. But now let's go over to the book of Luke real quick, and I want to show you the other side of that, or from Luke's perspective. He pretty much touching on the same thing that Matthew's touching on, but he a little bit more detail. So let's go to Luke chapter 21. You know, like I said, I touched on these verses before. So, but let me find exactly where I'm at in the book of Luke, or where I want to be. Okay, yeah, verse 21. Luke chapter 21, verse 21. We're going to start there. And it's verse 21 reads, then let them, and it's saying the same thing that Matthew just said, but he's going into detail a little bit more. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, mean leave, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto, for these be the days of vengeance. Remember, the Lord said he was going to recompense the children of Israel over in Ezekiel. This is what he's talking about. And I'll keep reading in verse 22, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. Okay, now right there, when it's talking about that all things may be fulfilled, it's talking about the curses that Moses said that was going to befall the children of Israel. All right, so now let's go. I want to stay right here for a minute. And even though it touches on right here in verse 23 where it says, but woe to them that give that them that are with child, we already know about that part right there. But what I want out of here is, let's see. Okay, yeah, let's go with verse 24 real quick. Verse 24, it says, and they, wait a minute, verse 23, I'm sorry. Verse 23, but woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. That's the children of Israel, going to have wrath. Remember, the Lord said he was going to pour his wrath out upon them. Now, verse 24, it says, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword. Now, this is the children of Israel that's going to fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. Now, this is Christ saying this. He's letting you know that the children of Israel are going to be led away captive into all nations. He's letting you know that the children of Israel are going into slavery. This lines right up with Deuteronomy 28, which is the prophecy of the curse that Moses said would befall the children of Israel. And Daniel likewise. Okay, so now, and then it says in verse 24, now watch this. It says, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Now remember what I read to you over in Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 21 and 22. Well, if you don't remember, go back and read it, and then line it up with this verse right here in verse 24, and look who the land of Israel is given to. All right. All right. So I'll stop right there, and now I want to go over to Isaiah and show you right here where the Lord said that the children of Israel would be taken into captivity. They're going to fall by the sword and be taken into captivity. In verse 24, where he says right here, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations. I want to show you how that's going to take place. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 5 real quick. Isaiah chapter 5, and show you what that's talking about. I think I want to go there first. Yeah, Isaiah chapter 5. And I want to show you what that meant. Well, I'll get into it. It's all in this chapter, but I just want to go here first. Isaiah chapter 5. And I think that's where I want to start. 5, then I'll go to 13. Hold on, let me make sure. Let's Let's see. Hold on. I'm kind of throwing myself off again. Okay, Isaiah chapter 5, verse 13 to 14. That's what I want. Now, remember Christ said that we would be led away captive into all nations. Well, look at what verse 13 says here in Isaiah chapter 5. And should I start at 12 or no? No, I start at verse 13. It says, therefore, my people are gone into captivity. This is the captivity that Christ is speaking about. This is the captivity that this captivity that Isaiah is speaking about is prophetic. It's prophecy that correlates with the captivity that Moses is speaking about, that the children of Israel is going to be taken into on slave ships. And it correlates with what Ezekiel is speaking about. And it correlates with what Christ is speaking about when he said that they shall fall by the sword and shall be taken into captivity into all nations. This is the captivity that Christ is talking about right here. And I'm going to show you how it's going to happen in just a minute. So just let me read 13 and 14. It says, therefore, my people are going into captivity because they have no knowledge. That knowledge is the word of God and his laws and statutes and commandments. And I'll continue reading. And it says, and their honorable men are famished. The honorable men are the men that gave the people the word of God. When it says that they were famished, they didn't have the word. They weren't able to. The Spirit of the Lord wasn't with them. To keep it short, the Spirit of the Lord wasn't with them anymore, so that they could feed the people. And then I'll keep reading. It says, and their multitude dried up with thirst. The multitude were the people. They were dried up with thirst because you know that the word of the Lord is the water, living water. So they weren't. The honorable men didn't have the word of the Lord to teach the multitude. So now none of them are with knowledge. None of them have the knowledge of the Lord. And then watch verse 14. It says, therefore, hell hath enlarged herself. When hell, the point here is that hell is not a lake of fire under the earth. Hell is the condition of life that you're living in, which is what our foreparents had to go through when they came over here to America, and every other place that they were dispersed into captivity. Because remember, in Jeremiah, the Lord said he was gonna. Well, I'll show you in a minute. It's in Isaiah too, so just bear with me. Right here in verse 14, it says, therefore, hell hath enlarged herself. When it says hell hath enlarged herself, that means captivity has enlarged herself. Because remember, the children of Israel would only go into captivity. They were in captivity under the Babylonians. Every time they went into captivity in their region of the world, they were let free to go back into Jerusalem. Well, this time, this captivity, or hell, so to speak, is going to be much more widespread. Now you're going to be scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. That's what the scriptures mean when it says hell hath enlarged herself and opened her mouth without measure. You see, this is throughout the entire world. And their glory and their multitude and their pomp, and he that rejoiceth shall descend into it. So every man of Israel is going into this captivity, because remember Ezekiel said it was going to be upon the whole multitude. All right, so they all had to go into it. All right, so now let's stay in the same chapter, but let's go over into verse 20 and show you how this was going to take place. And now what I want you to remember in verse 14, the beginning right there where it says, therefore hell hath, is that what I want? Hell hath enlarged herself. Okay, let's go to verse 20 real quick. And we're going to read verse 20 down to 30. All right, it says, verse 20, woe unto them that call evil good. Now, this is just a starting point. I could have started somewhere else, but I wanted to find a starting point just so that I can get to where I want to be, and just to make the point. Okay, so verse 20, woe unto them that call evil good. This is a lesson for y'all too, that call evil good and good evil. You should be taking notes or trying to understand and trying to examine your own self if you are this person that's calling good evil and evil good. Okay, so verse 20, it says, woe unto, that's destruction. But basically, destruction to you. This is what the Lord is saying to the children of Israel. 20, verse 20. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. Woe unto them that are mighty to drink wine and men of strength to mingle strong drink, which justify the wicked for reward. So that's somebody that justifies the wicked for a reward. In other words, a wicked person come and pay the man that's supposed to be judging the matter, and he gives a false judgment for that reward that he take. The Most High said, woe unto you. All right, verse 23 again, which justify the wicked for reward and take away the righteousness of the righteous from him. Therefore, as the fire devoureth the stubble, and the flame consumeth the chaff, so their root shall be as rottenness, and their blossom shall go up as dust, because they have cast away the law of the Lord of hosts, and despised the word of the Holy One of Israel. That's our mistake, people. We never want to listen to the law of the Lord. The scriptures keep telling us over and over and over and over and over again, and we don't want to take heed to it. This is the only thing that we need to do. Turn back to the laws of the Lord and stop despising his word, and he'll fight for us. All right, verse 25. Therefore is the anger of the Lord kindled against his people. Who is his anger kindled against? His people, Israel. Okay? And he hath stretched forth his hand against them. This now, remember what Ezekiel was saying. Remember what Christ was saying in the book of Matthew in reference to going into captivity. This is after they fled Jerusalem. This is how the other nations got a hold of them after they fled Jerusalem and went to the various places that they settled down into Africa. When they migrated down in Africa, this is how the Lord sent these other nations out, sent these nations after them. Therefore is the verse 25. Therefore is the anger of the Lord kindled against his people, and he hath stretched forth his hand against them, and have smitten them, and the hills did tremble, and the carcasses were torn in the midst of the streets. For all this, remember he said they would be slain by the sword and famine as well. So, but I'll keep reading. It says, for all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. So even after all of that punishment that the Lord did to him, he was still upset. And that anger carried all the way up until the time, well, even up until now. But the Lord he's still angry with us. But that anger came all the way up until the time that our people went into slavery on slave ships. All right, so now I'll read verse 26. Because remember, I'm going to verse 30. And it says, verse 26 says, and he will lift up an ensign to the nations from far. Now, that says the Most High is doing this. And he will lift up an ensign to the nations from far, and will hiss unto them from the end of the earth. And behold, they shall come with speed, swiftly. So while the children of Israel, our ancestors, were in the west coast of Africa, how do you think the other nations found them? The Most High put an ensign up. Why did he say how do you think we got scattered to so many different nations? He's letting you know right here. And he will lift up an ensign to the nations from far, the nations. This is why Israel got scattered into all. This is why our ancestors, got scattered into all different nations. This is why we're here in this nation now, because the Lord punished us. Okay, so people, y'all got to start learning to consider that God is not the God to play around with, and we have to turn back to his laws, statutes, and commandments. All right, so he says here, and verse 26 again, and he did, well, let me do this. Let me start right there, and let's go back up to verse 13 and verse 14. I'm sorry, verse 14. where it says, therefore, hell hath enlarged herself. When I was trying to explain to you earlier, when it's that hell is the condition of life that the children of Israel are going to be in. Look at verse 13, where it says, therefore my people are going into captivity. Now jump back down to verse 14. Therefore hell hath enlarged herself. That enlarging is this right here. Remember I told you earlier that the children of Israel would always be in captivity over in the area, the region near their own land. And when they got out of those captivities, they would always go back into their own land afterwards. But being that hell hath enlarged herself, now we jump down to verse verse 26. Yeah, I kind of forgot the verse. Verse 26. And it says, and he will lift up an ensign to the nations. To the nations from far. That's hell enlarging itself right there. Captivity is enlarging itself. Now you're going into captivity under all the nations of the earth. Okay? And I'll keep reading. I think you got that. I'll keep reading. And then it says, and will hiss unto them from the end. They came and got us from the ends of the earth. They came from different parts of the earth, and they took us back to different parts of the earth. That's how we know they came from different parts of the earth, from the far end of the earth, because that's where they took us to afterwards. Okay? And then it says, and I will hiss unto them from the end of the earth, and behold, they shall come with speed. Remember how the scriptures say, as swift as the eagle flieth? You got to put these scriptures together, man. Verse 27, it says, none shall be weary. He means those that are going to come and get us. None shall be weary, nor stumble among them. None shall slumber, nor sleep. Neither shall the girdle of their loins be loosed, nor the latchet of their shoes be broken, whose arrows are sharp, and all their bows bent. I mean, they had weapons ready to go to war. Their horses' hoofs shall be counted like flint. They don't even, you know how some horses have to stop. You got to re-shoe them, put the foul the shoe down, and they got to take a break. But if it's flint is a very tough and a very strong material. There's no stopping. We don't need to take a break, because if their hoofs are like flint, and nothing's going to break on those hoofs, the hoofs of those horses. And their wheels like a whirlwind. So the Lord is letting you know, and remember, the Most High sent these people against us. And why? This is the part that y'all don't like to hear. Our people don't like to hear. Why did he send them against us? Because you won't keep his commandments. All right, verse 29. Their roaring shall be like a lion. They shall roar like young lions. Yea, they shall roar and lay hold of the prey. Guess who's the prey? We were the prey, and they shall carry it away safe, and none shall deliver it. So did they not carry us away safely, and we didn't have anybody to deliver us? That's what the scripture means when it says, and none shall buy them. None shall buy them. I'll read it. I'll go back. I'll pull the verse up in a little bit in Deuteronomy 28. And when it talks about none shall buy them, it says right here, and none shall deliver it. Nobody's going to deliver the prey. Nobody was able to deliver us from their hands. Okay? And in verse 30, I'll finish up. It says, and in that day they shall roar against them like the roaring of the sea. And if one look unto the land, meaning the children of Israel, if they look to the land, because the land is gone, it says, behold, darkness and sorrow, and the light is darkened in the heavens thereof. The land is destroyed. You understand? So that's what the Most High will do for you, man, and do to you for not keeping his commandments, all right, and not being obedient. So, people, you got to learn how to serve the Lord and be obedient. So what I'm showing you is Jacob's trouble. All right, so now let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 28, and let's go to verse 16 real fast. And I'm not even going to touch on too many of these verses, because I'll be here all day. But and I just got in from work. I've been here now for maybe a little bit more than an hour, and I intend on going a little bit longer. So just bear with me. So Deuteronomy chapter 28. Now I'm just showing you this is Jacob's trouble. Jacob's trouble had already begun, and our ancestors have lived it, and we are still in it to this very moment. All right, and I'll show you what that day that I believe that a lot of brothers are speaking about. I'll show you what that day is in a little bit. So I got a few more verses. I got a handful of more to go through. I just need you to bear with me because I'm kind of elaborating a little bit more than what I thought I was going to be. But Lord willing is helpful. Lord willing, hopefully, is helpful to somebody and is bringing about some kind of edification or giving an understanding that, somebody might be missing. All right, so let's look at the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, and let's just look at verse 15 real quick. All right, verse 15, Deuteronomy 28:15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, this is Moses talking, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Now, that's what Moses told the children of Israel. And I'll read verse 16, but I've already touched on this once earlier on in this lesson. It says, cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field. And I explained to you what that was over in the book of Jeremiah. I think that was Jeremiah. No, I can't remember. I got so much on my head right now, on my mind. I think it was in Jeremiah. But nevertheless, and the way that curse played out afterwards is when we came over here to the Americas. We were cursed in the field in regards to working in the cotton field and every other field that they had us in for free, whipping our backs, working our fingers to the bone, and they had no pity or compassion upon us. And not only was it the adults, the men and women, it was our children also. Okay, and nobody wants to really acknowledge that, but there's a price that's got to be paid for that. And listen, man, I when the time comes, a lot of people are going to wish that these things hadn't taken place and that they had treated us and our ancestors a lot better than what they did. But today, now the Spirit of the Lord is going through the earth, and it is upon men. And I'm not just saying myself, men that are out and about speaking and teaching the word of the Lord on the corners. They're doing us a service. And I'm not even saying that you have to even join in with any of those brothers, like in their groups or in their camps or whatever, because I'm not affiliated with them either. But I've learned from them, and the Lord allowed me to understand certain things in the scriptures. And so what I learn, I teach, or, I'll speak to someone about it. And that's pretty much it. And not only that, but live it. You try with all your might, all your heart, and you live it. That's just all there is to it. Okay, as you learn and as you become knowledgeable in the things that you don't know, Lord willing, the Most High give you some understanding about it. So what I said. So I'm gonna touch on two more curses here in the book of Deuteronomy. Let's go to 45, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 45, and we're gonna read down to 48. All right, and it says in verse 45, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed. Now, right here, this is where it affects us here in the Americas. How the scriptures say that it shall pursue us and overtake us. It doesn't matter where we go, whether it's in the Americas, whether it's in the Netherlands, or France, or wherever it might be. These curses are going to pursue us and overtake us till thou be destroyed. Now, that destruction is us not knowing who we are. After the hundreds of years of us going through slavery and our foreparents being brutalized and our women being taken advantage of, and the children being taken from their parents, separated and sold to different plantations, the men being suspended from trees and whipped across their backs with so many lashes till they bleed out, and as well as being alive and set on open fires. and castrated and things of that nature, man. It's just a lot of things that didn't have to be done to us, which the scriptures talk about it. And there has to be a price for that, man. And there's no price in the world that any money, reparations of any sort, can cover. The Most High has to get that judgment, has to bring that judgment. And he is. All right. So there's a lot that happened to us, man, over the years. And the Most High knows it all. He is all recorded. So look, verse 45, I'll finish it up. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. Again, we have to begin to keep the commandments of the Lord, even today. Verse 46, and they, when it says and they, it's talking about the curses that it just mentioned in verse 45. Verse 45 said, moreover, excuse me, I ain't know that was, I knew it was coming, but I ain't, nevertheless, excuse me. Verse 45, it says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee. Now, when you finish reading verse 45 and it gets down to verse 46, and verse 46 says, and they shall be upon thee for a sign, it's talking about the curses in verse 45 that it's speaking about. The curses shall be upon you for a sign. So it's letting you know that these curses are going to be upon a certain people, a particular group of people in the earth, and it's going to be a sign upon them to identify them. So whoever those people are that identify with these curses in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, you know that these are the people of the Lord, or these are the actual Israelites, because the Lord said that these curses would be upon them for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. The seed is your child. So our ancestors that came over here in 1619, and they had children, and their children's children, their sons had sons and daughters, and so on and so forth, they never stopped, even up until this very moment. Because remember, the Lord said when he returned, he's going to gather Israel from all the places that he scattered them. So if the Lord is going to gather Israel from all the places that he scattered them, then that means we're still here. Okay, so anybody can say whatever they want to say in respect to Israel not being here anymore. According to the scriptures, we are. All right, so verse 47. Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. We should have been relying on the Lord for all things, and we should have been serving him with gladness of heart and with joy. But we always want to be of our own imagination. You know, our women, we, make things difficult. And when you do that, you only make it difficult for yourself, because the way of life that our women are living today, there's nothing good about it. All right. In verse 48, and it says, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies. He says enemies. That means all these nations that we went into captivity under. He says, therefore I keep messing that up. He says, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee. Again, the Lord sent them against us. What did Isaiah say? The Lord said he was going to set up an ensign, and he was going to hiss to the other nations. He was going to set up an ensign for the other nations and hiss, and they were going to come swiftly. Yeah, the Lord did it. All because you don't want to keep his commandments. So verse 48, it says, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. So then when you go back up to verse 45, it says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed. So the curses are going to be upon us until we be destroyed. And that destruction is after they take those yokes of iron. Well, before they take in verse 48, before they took the yokes of iron off of the necks of the slaves, they were already destroyed. They didn't know who they were as a people. They didn't know that they were a nation. They didn't know that the God of heaven was their God. And they had nothing. Everything was taken from them. Okay, so at that point, they were destroyed. And just like our people today, because we have only learned what they were able to teach us. And it's only up until this point that we're beginning to learn for ourselves. You know, maybe some years earlier than now, but I'm just trying to make the point. But it's only now that we're able to learn for ourselves, and now we're coming into the actual understanding. All praises to the Most High by allowing His Spirit to be upon the men that He allowed it to be upon, so that we are now learning. And furthermore, I hope and pray that we all get it and grow and learn to come together, you know, in unity in Christ. Okay, so I'll finish up here, and I think, well, maybe I did finish. Yeah. Okay. So, well, I didn't touch on it, but nevertheless, I'll read it again, and then I'll touch on it a little bit. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, mean for food. When the slaves came over here to America, they had to get every bit of food that they ate. They had to get it from their enemies, or the people that had them in captivity. And then it says, and in thirst, and for water, for drink, or whatever sort it was. Even though, you know, it was cruel, some of them probably didn't give them actual liquid water to drink, you know, just being evil, gave them other things to drink and other things to eat just as well. But I'll finish up nevertheless. And in nakedness, the nakedness is clothing. We didn't even have our own clothing, you know, so we had to take everything that we got from the other nations or from our enemies. Even today, we don't have any of these things at our reach, or we don't have our own factories. We don't have our own sources for these things. Okay. And then it says, and in want of all things. So everything that we have need of, we had to get it from our enemies, or the people that had us in captivity. And likewise today. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. So it's letting you know that the folks that put those yokes of iron upon our necks was our enemies, and those that had the yokes of iron upon their necks that fit this curse were the children of Israel, which were so-called African Americans here in America in 1619 and thereafter. Okay, so now let's go to same chapter, verse 68. All right, and then what I'm showing you is Jacob's trouble. This is Jacob's trouble. All the things that our ancestors had to go through during this time. All right, now verse 68, and it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Now it says again, remember the children of Israel, they were already in Egypt, in the land of Egypt, once before under Pharaoh, and they never went back as a nation, as a whole. Okay, so he's making reference to something that's going to be in the future. And he makes reference to it being Egypt because Egypt was considered to be the house of bondage, according to Exodus 20:2. So, and then he says that the way that you're going to get to this Egypt this time around is going to be on ships. And we know how our ancestors came over to the Americas, and how the diaspora, we know how they got to the lands or to the nations or to their enemies. We know how they got there. It was on ships. And I'll keep reading. It says, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. Now that right there, where it says, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, he's talking about by the mountain Sinai. That's a location. He said, remember I mentioned that to you earlier when I told you that he said that now you won't hear this, and it won't be the sounding of the mountains again. Right here, this is where the Lord caused the mountains to rumble, and he gave them his laws and everything like that when he was with Moses. But right here, right here is where he said, when he says, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, by the way, when Moses spake to the children of Israel through the Lord, it was at the Mount Sinai. And then he's saying, thou shalt see it no more again. When you go into this Egypt, into this captivity, you won't be you're not the Lord is not going to come to your rescue. In other words, you're not going to end up at that mountain again how I spoke to you the first time, because you're going to be going away for a long time, and you're not going to be nowhere near the place that I spoke to you the first time when I gave you God's laws, statutes, and commandments, which was at Mount Sinai. So when he says, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, in that location, in that area, near at Mount Sinai, you're not going to see that again. It's separate. This is an isolated verse. And then it says, now it connects back up with the first part of that sentence when it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. The third part of that paragraph, now that's where it connects back up when it says, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies, meaning Egypt. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen, meaning slave men, and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Remember earlier where I read and showed you that it said that no one was going to be able to deliver you? I can't remember where it was that I read it, but that's what it's talking about, being delivered from the hands of your enemies. In fact, if I can find it I got too much more to do, too much more to read. Okay, so I hope that makes sense to you. Well, I hope you understand it, because it definitely makes sense. It's just a matter. It's just a matter of you understanding. All right, so that's verse 68. The Lord sent them into Egypt again on ships, and he said, by the way whereof I spake unto you, Mount Sinai, you're not going to see it again, because the Lord is not helping you out and giving you his law, statutes, and commandments after you come out of this Egypt, like I did the first time around. All right. So now, let's go back over to the book of Matthew real quick. I'm gonna show you something else in reference to well, let's see. Let's get over that first. Let me get there. So the lesson gonna turn out to be a little longer than I expected, but Lord willing, it be edifying to somebody. Matthew chapter 24, and we're going to go to, all right, so now remember, at this point, the children of Israel, our ancestors, were here in slavery and serving the enemies. Now, a lot of people like to say, well, we freed y'all from slavery and things of that nature, and so on and so forth. But I want to show you that it wasn't anyone that did it. It was the Lord. So let's look at Matthew chapter 24 and verse 22. And let me see if that's exactly where I want to start. Okay, yeah. Well, I won't verse 22. That's what I want you to see. But I want to read verse 21 before I read verse 22, and then I'll explain. Verse 21 says, for then shall be great tribulation. Now, this is when we fled Jerusalem, and then we had to go into slavery, all right? The same thing that Daniel was talking about. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. Now, he's talking about tribulation, so he's talking about slavery and captivity. And he made mention of it when he told you that in the book of Luke, that we would be scattered into all nations. But when you look at verse 22, and it says, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Now, a lot of people don't know or understand that those days that it's talking about are the actual days of slavery. The Lord said that he's talking right there. He's telling you that the days of slavery, the hardcore slavery that our ancestors had to live with and live in, that's what he's saying. Those are the days that he's saying would be shortened. So it wasn't because of anybody. It wasn't because of Abe Lincoln or whoever. It was because of the Lord. The Lord shortened those days. And This has nothing to do with the end time or the last days of the earth. This is talking about slavery. That's why he says, except those days be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. So how do you know he's talking about the days of slavery? Because at that particular point in time when we were in slavery, none of us were able to read. None of us were allowed to read. So if we weren't allowed to read, or if the Lord didn't shorten those actual days, then how could the dry bones in the valley begin to wake up? You understand? So the dry bones had to have accessibility to be able to wake up. So the Lord had to shorten those days. Now, let me see here. I want to show you. I want to show you something real quick. Let's go to because like I said, a lot of people like to make claim that, well, it was our ancestors that freed you guys and such and such. Y'all put us into slavery. So to say that is kind of like a slap in the face. I wouldn't even acknowledge that if I was, somebody of another nation and I knew that I did that to somebody. But it was the Lord. The Lord shortened those days, and I'll show. Let's go to Daniel chapter 4, and let me pull it up real quick. And I believe chapter 4. Let's go to 16 and 17. Okay. Now this is when the Lord caused Nebuchadnezzar to turn into somewhat of a beast and caused him to eat grass in the field. All right. And now to show you the power of the Lord, or the power of the Most High, and how he changes men and how he allowed things to happen because he wanted to happen. And it's not you at your own, your own will. I gotta pull it. It's another verse I gotta pull up too. So let's read it real quick. Daniel chapter 4, verse 16 and 17. It says, now this is in reference to King Nebuchadnezzar. It says, let his heart be changed from man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. That's 7 years. This matter is by the decree of the watchers. The watchers are the angels. And the demand by the Holy One, and the demand by the word of the Holy Ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basis of men. So he'll even set low men up over the kingdoms. Okay. So now that point, let me see if I can find the other verse that I needed real quick over in Proverbs. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so just to show you how the scripture says right here in Proverbs chapter 21, it's letting you know, it says the king's heart is in the hands of the Lord. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. So the leaders of America that had our people in captivity, it's the Lord that turned their hearts, meaning the mind. That's what the heart is of the man, the mind. Even though we have a fleshly heart within our chest, but when you make reference to the scriptures, he's talking about your mind. So the Lord turned the heart of man to cause them to free us, or not to free us, but to ease that burden of servitude that our people were in. We see how after so many years, after the Jim Crow and all that stuff, even though all of that was still terrible, but how they began to allow us to partake of certain things, get rights and things of that nature, civil rights and all that. Let me show you how that came about. But let me show you. Let's show you the other part. Let's see. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 6. How it began first. Jeremiah chapter 6. I think the 6 and 19. Okay. Now look at this real quick. Jeremiah chapter 6. And I'll touch on it a little bit, but chapter 6 and verse 19. Now, this is the Most High through Jeremiah. He's talking to the earth. He says, "Hear, O earth, behold, I will bring evil upon this people, even the fruit of their thoughts, because they have not hearkened unto me, unto my words, nor to my law, but rejected it." Okay, so now this is the Lord making a decree to the earth. And then when you go over to Jeremiah, let's see, 22. Well, the Lord put another decree out in the earth, letting the earth know that he was against Israel. And now when he's talking to the earth, this is the reason why any and everywhere that the children of Israel were scattered, black people in America, this is why nobody would help us. This is why nobody came to our rescue to help us out of slavery and or any of the conditions that we were in, because the Lord put this decree out in the earth. You understand? And I want to show you something. I'll show you later on where the earth began to help the children of Israel. And when the Lord did that, that's why we were able to begin to get civil rights and things of that nature. And that has brought us up until this very point. And when the scriptures, which I'll go to it. Well, in fact, let me hold on one second. I hate kind of hate jumping the gun, but let me go to it real quick. Let me find it real quick. Hold on. Bear with me. I'm a little slow at this typing stuff, man. All right, so now, okay, let me read that once again. I'm moving a little too fast, and I started doing my lesson before I brought up the actual scripture, one of the other scriptures that I needed in reference to the Lord speaking to the earth. And he was talking to the children of Israel, and he said that they were going to be taken into a land that was not their own. And the earth was basically, in the earth, the Lord talked to the earth more than once in lots of different areas, where he's letting the earth know that these people that are my people, they got some stuff to go through, and you're going to be against them. Even when it came down to us getting rain, you know. So that's why we didn't have any help from anybody when it came down to it, helping us in this captivity, because the Lord didn't want that. But when you go over to the book of Revelation in chapter 12 and verse 16, and this is how we begin to, like even today, well, we began to get our civil rights and things of that nature, and laws began to be passed. The Lord was doing all of that. And it says in verse 16, Revelation chapter 12, verse 16, and the earth helped the woman. The woman is us, Israel. And the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. Okay, now that right there is what the Lord was doing, is when the earth helped the woman, even unto this very day. There's things that are coming out now in the earth that the Lord is allowing to be revealed, showing all of the debauchery that has been done by the other nations to us as a people, and all that they do to us. And he's allowing certain things to come out that actually help us and show us what identifies us. You know, all that don't want to believe it, hey, that's you. You have a choice, you know, but the scriptures are right here, and it's all up to you, you know, if you want to take heed and believe the scriptures and understand them. All right, so I just want to go back and finish up with this Jacob's trouble. All right, so let's go into Jeremiah. Let's see. Yeah, 30 and 7 again. I want to go into where he's talking about being saved out of this trouble. Okay, let's go to that part. 30 and 7. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 7. And it's going to be the bottom part of verse 7. It says, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. So now, even though it's going to be Jacob's trouble, and like I told you before, it's more so of a duration of time, but the Lord is saying we're going to be saved out of it. So let's go and find out what the Lord is talking about, how we're going to be saved out of it. Let's go to the book of Matthew again, and I'm going to go back to chapter 24. I probably didn't know that there was so much in the book of Matthew that could help you out. All right, so let's go to verse 29. Matthew chapter 24, verse 29. Now it says here in verse 29, it says, immediately after the tribulation of those days. Now, this tribulation is the same tribulation that hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. If you look at verse 22 in the same chapter, where it says, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. And it's in the same chapter. If you go down to verse 29, and then it says, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. So from 21 to 29 lets you know it's the same tribulation, but it's not one day. There's too much time in between there, because here one of them is talking about tribulation, the same tribulation that Daniel was talking about, and the other one is it's the same tribulation, but it's the end of it. It's saying immediately after the tribulation of those days. So it's letting you know that from the start of the tribulation, from verse 21, when we fled Jerusalem, verse 29 is the end of that tribulation, where the tribulation is over for the most part, or we're still in it, but this is the end of it. So, but he's letting you know that something's going to take place right here. Now, let's see what's going to take place and why. And okay, so I'll read verse 29 again. It says, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. That's the nations. The powers of the heavens, that's the nations. That's talking about war. These people are the powers of the heavens that have military might. That's who that's talking about. And then verse 30 says, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So now that means that something's going to take place that's going to allow the Son of Man to return. Okay, so now let's look at verse 29 again. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Now, what is that speaking about? Okay, let's go. Okay, so let's just keep reading, and we're gonna go. I think I might want to jump a little bit because remember, Jeremiah said in verse 30 and 7, chapter 30, verse 7, that they will be saved out of it. So I'll show you in a minute what this day is that is speaking about in Matthew chapter 24, verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days. I'll show you what that is in a minute. But let's keep reading, because this is talking about the Son of Man appearing. Now let's go to verse 31. And it says, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the earth to the other. And then it says, now learn the parable of the fig tree. Now, but I don't want that part. I just want to show you that if this day right here is Jacob's trouble, then this wouldn't line up the way that it does. So let's prove that it's not Jacob's trouble. Let's jump down to verse 37, where it says, but now this is making reference to the same time, in this same time frame that this is happening. Well, in fact, I'll go back up. Let's go back up. And okay, I'll just read on down from 31. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect. That's the children of Israel, the elect of the children of Israel, from the four winds. See, the children of Israel was scattered into all nations. So he's going to gather them from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now he says, now learn the parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise, ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the door. So he's talking about the end, the actual end of the world, which is going to be war. And that war is going to be nuclear, which I'm going to show you. I'll show you in just a minute. And it says here in verse 34, it says, verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. He's just talking to them about because he had told them earlier that they were going to have to flee. Jerusalem was going to be destroyed and things of that nature. So remember, this is the generation that Christ was in. So these people were of a certain age within his time frame, within his age bracket. So he's telling them, because we know how he passed away, because he was crucified on the cross. But he told them that this generation shall not pass away. So he's letting them know that y'all are going to be here when the desolation of abomination is set up in the land of Jerusalem. And y'all are going to see when Jerusalem is compassed about with armies, and y'all are going to be the ones that's going to be fleeing into the mountains. That's why he said to them, this generation shall not pass. Where is it at? I just seen it right here. And okay. Okay, verse 34 says, verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. The things that he had just told them about that was going to happen, before at the time of the desolation. So then it says in verse 35, it says, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. Verse 36 says, but on that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah, so shall be the coming of the Son of Man. Now let's see what they were doing in the days of Noah and what they're going to be doing at this point in time when he's saying that this is going to take place. Verse 38, hold on, man. Let me read back up to 37. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So he's saying, as it was in the days of Noah, it's going to be the same way when Christ came. Remember how when Noah was going out and about speaking and preaching the word of the Lord, trying to tell the people to prepare, that the Lord was going to make it rain for 40 days and 40 nights. And he built the ark because nobody would take heed to him. And then all of a sudden the rain came. So the Lord is saying, this is what people are going to be doing up until the time that he returned. So at this point, there's no trouble in Jacob. In fact, Jacob loved this place. You know what I'm saying? Our people love it here. So we're going to be doing, our people are going to be doing everything that they're doing right now today. And he's going to tell you that right now in verse 38. It says, for as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark. So they were doing all of that until that very day that Noah entered into the ark. So guess what they're going to be doing today when the Lord returned? They're going to be doing all of these things. Ain't nobody, there might be some small pockets here and there of violence and civil unrest and things of that nature, but for the most part, this is Christ saying this. So I know it's not a lie. So these people are going to be doing everything under the sun, even then, even now, until the Lord return. And watch verse 39. And knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken and the other left. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doeth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore, be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. All right, you see here? So now let's jump real quick, because I want to show you something in reference to that. How the scripture saying that we're gonna be doing everything that they were doing in the days of Noah when the Son of Man come, and nobody knows the time that is gonna happen. Let's see real quick. So okay, so let's not jump, but let's go over to, I was missing something real quick. Uh, 29. Hold on one second. All right, verse 29, where it says, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Let's show you what's going to cause that. Let's go over to 2 Peter real quick. 2 Peter chapter 3. I want to do verse 7. I think that's, hold on. Verse 7. Let's start at verse. I think I want it. I think I want it. I might have made the wrong recommendation. Let's look at verse 7 real quick, and we're going to go down to verse 10. But the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire, against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night. Okay, so remember what it just made mention of in Deuteronomy 28. In Matthew chapter 24, how they would be eating and drinking, and they're going to be carrying on until, like they were doing in the days of Noah, until the flood came. Listen at what this is saying in verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night. They're not going to know when it's going to happen, because everybody's going to be doing their own thing. So there is no Jacob trouble of one day. We've been in Jacob's trouble, okay? And then I'll finish up. It says, in thee, which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise. That noise is the sounding of a nuclear missile dropping down, okay? to make it simple. And the elements shall melt. This is what's going to let you know that that noise that is talking about is a nuclear missile, because what else can do this to elements in the world? Let me give you this verse again. Let me give you this verse again. 2 Peter, and I hope it shake you up. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in thee which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. Seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of person ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness, looking for and hasting unto the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens, being on fire, shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. You see? So the Lord is going to let some destruction fall down upon this place. All right? So that's what verse 29 is speaking about when it says, after the tribulation of those days. Now, let me give you a little bit more on that. Let's go over to Malachi real quick. And I want to show you that destruction, or that tribulation that Matthew 24 and 29 is talking about. In those days, I'll show you that in a minute in Daniel. But let's go over to Malachi chapter 4. I believe it's chapter 4, verse 1. Okay, verse 1. Malachi chapter 4, verse 1. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord, Lord of hosts, that it shall leave neither root nor branch. All right? See, so there's going to be some destruction that's going to take place on this earth. All right? So let's look now. Let's finish this thing off, and let's go over to the book of Daniel, chapter 12. Now, that day, when the scripture's talking about in Matthew chapter 24, verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days, I'm going to show you that. And in the same verse, is going to show you the children of Israel being saved out of it, like Jeremiah 30 and at the end of verse 7 said. All right. And then I'll go somewhere else. I want to show it to you real quick. But anyhow, let's read Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. And it says, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, meaning the children of Israel, and there shall be a time of trouble. Now, this trouble right here is not Jacob's trouble. This trouble right here is talking about nuclear fire on the earth. It's talking about nuclear missiles being passed across the skies. All right. And it says, such as never was since there was a nation, even to the same time. And at that time, thy people shall be delivered. The children of Israel are going to be delivered out of this. Watch this. Everyone that shall be found written in the book. All right. Let me show it to you. Let's go. Okay, so now let's go back. That right there, because you got Michael standing up in this thing. If Michael is getting involved, and he's talking about this day of trouble that never was. Let's go back over to Jeremiah in chapter 30, and we'll finish it up there. And let's see. Okay, now I'll start at 7, which we already know what 7 is about, but I'll read down and show you the children of Israel being saved out of that last day that Daniel was just talking about when Michael the archangel stand up. It says here in verse 7, it says, alas, for that day is great. This is why it gets misconstrued or mixed up as Jacob's trouble being one day. It says it because it appears to be that way, but that's not what it is. Jacob's trouble is the time that we went into slavery and captivity, and the day that we're going to be saved out. That's going to be a great day too, but that's going to be a day of destruction, nuclear war, nuclear destruction. Okay, so verse 7 it says, "Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it." That means Israel is going to be saved out of it. Verse 8 says, For it shall come to pass. Now it's going to come to pass in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and will burst his bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. That means that we're not going to be under the yoke of any nation anymore. The Lord is going to deliver us from their hands. All right. And then in verse 9 it says, But they shall serve the Lord their God and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. So now let's go over into Matthew again and show you what that saving us looks like, which I touched on a little bit earlier, but we're going to close it up now. Right back in 24. So a lot of y'all probably don't pay attention to a lot of this stuff, or you just may not know, just like I didn't at one point, but the Lord revealed things to me, and I thank the Lord that I'm able to express it. Now, this is that same day that Michael is going to stand up that we just read in Daniel chapter 12. Matthew chapter 24, verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. And this, hold on 1 second. Bear with me. Hold on 1 second. Okay. I had to look at something in my Bible real quick. Okay, verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man. This is where Michael comes in at just as well. What you'll see in a minute. Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, children of Israel, the 12 tribes, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the cloud of heaven with power and great glory. Verse 31, and he shall send his angel with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together. This is us being saved out of that trouble. This is us being saved out of it right here. He said, verse 31, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the earth, from one end of the heavens to the other. Okay, so that's it. And hold on 1 second. I had another. Give me 1 second, because I got it. So I got something else to back that up. If you give me 1 second. Okay, just to show a little bit more of us being saved out of that day. Okay, which I read some of it already, but let's go back over to Jeremiah chapter 30, and we're gonna get the last couple of verses here. Jeremiah chapter 30. Okay. All right. And let's go down to verse 8, and I'll read from there. It says, for it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, that I will break the yoke. See, when wait a minute, brother. I'm missing something. Hold on. I'm missing something. Okay, I was looking for the verse where it talked about the Lord was going to have the angels thrust in his sickle. But that's us being saved likewise. But nevertheless, I'll just go right here and I'll finish up at verse 11. I'll start at 8 and finish up at 11. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, that I will break the yoke. Now, this is the children of Israel being delivered, which I've stated this already, from the hands of our enemies. He's going to break the yoke after he, deliver us out of their hands. He's going to break the yoke. Let me find out where I'm at. That I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. Nobody's going to be able to make us servants for them anymore. We'll be able to serve the Lord. Verse 9, it says, starting to lose my voice here, but they shall serve the Lord their God, and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. Therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith the Lord, neither be dismayed, O Israel. You see, he's talking to Israel. For lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. For I am with thee, saith the Lord, to save thee, though I make a full end of all nations. He's going to make an end of all the other nations that enslaved us. Whether I have scattered thee, see, it was Israel that was scattered. Yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure. The correction in measure that he gave us was in captivity. And then we had to come back and learn who we were through the preaching, through the teachings of the brothers that are out and about on the highways and byways. We had to learn who we were, repent, turn back to the Lord, keep his commandments, so that when he returned, we're found in right standing with him, and then he deliver us. And then I'll finish up reading. It says, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. For thus saith the Lord, thy bruise is incurable, and thy wound is grievous. All right, so that's pretty much it. So Jacob's trouble is the point. Jacob's trouble is not one day. Jacob's trouble began since we fled out of Jerusalem and went into captivity under the hands of our enemies, and meaning our ancestors and us still being here as a result of slavery. The captivity that our forefathers went into, meaning black people that went into slavery under their enemies in 1619 and thereafter, and had to suffer a lot of atrocities. So to those of the Israelite persuasion, that's what Jacob's trouble is, okay? It's not one day. It's not in the end. We've been in it. All right, so hopefully that's been a blessing to you, or edifying, or giving you some information that you might not be aware of. And if you hear this lesson and you have some information yourself, you got scriptures that you can put together just to add on to it, then that's what you do. And then you make sense of it, come try to understand it, and then you just carry on doing what you do, serving the Lord, keeping his commandments. And I got to say this in respect to doing these lessons. Sometimes, speaking about myself mainly, and other brothers just as well, when we do these lessons, sometimes we have a lot on our mind in reference to the scriptures and the verses, and we might say something in error, and it ain't intentional. So hopefully, I guess I'm saying that, so that, people might not, if you hear something that sound like it didn't sound right, or that scripture doesn't line up there, sometimes it's just an honest mistake, and we can make them, and it would be too much for us to go back and erase all that we've done, to try and fix that one mistake. So if you know where we might have said something that was out of order or wrong, and you know what the answer is to it, or you know what's right or what should be said, then just make the correction in your own notes or in your own mind, and try not to make too big of a deal out of it, because sometimes it's just an honest, innocent mistake. All right. And so, nevertheless, with that being said, I'm grateful and thankful to the Most High for blessing me to be able to bring forth this lesson. I didn't know it was going to be over 2 hours, And I just got in from work a little while ago, so I'm a little tired now and everything. But nevertheless, the Lord's will, his work be done, and not only by me, but many more, as it has been, and throughout the earth, so that, his sheep would hear his voice and repent and turn back to the Most High. So, Lord willing, the lesson go forth into the ears of the people that is intended for, and that would be edified. So that's pretty much it. All right. So, all right, there you go. All right, thanks, and be blessed.